Hey, good evening, everybody. I hope you all can hear me. I want to first of all thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight and being part of this discussion. We're very excited to be able to present this event for you. But before I get started, it should be noted that tonight's webinar was scheduled before the vice presidential debate was scheduled. And hopefully you can watch it later this evening or on some other day. I hope if you don't, go over there, rush and turn on your DVR. But most importantly, let's make sure that you get out there and exercise your right and vote. So tonight meeting, first and foremost, it's something amazing is happening, and we need to make sure that we pause and take note of this. Tonight's meeting is an example of great collaboration and teamwork. We have 4 powerhouse organizations, SAE, SWE, SHPE, and NSBE, all combined. Well, separately, they do great work, and any one of them could have put together a successful career panel on their own. But coming together, I believe that they've upped the ante and overall have increased the value that this program is going to present. And if you are not already a member of one of these wonderful organizations, first of all, welcome. I'm glad that you came. If you're curious, if this is your first time participating in a professional event and you got here out of curiosity, or if you just have some questions, here is the contact information for these folks. And I'll start off with Jasmine Nasseri from Northrop Grumman. She represents SWE. Gerardo Franco for Raytheon Technologies represents the SHPE South Bay, Los Angeles area. Victoria Gray from Northrop Grumman here as a representative for Region 6 NSBE. And Dean Case with Motivo is your representative for SAE SoCal. Again, if you have any kind of questions or follow or any questions about the organizations themselves, make sure that you do reach out. And I'm pretty sure each one of these organizations would love nothing more than to have you as a member and as a volunteer, as community service is probably a big part of what they do. So again, it's worth noting that there was a huge collaboration here. I'm very excited that I'm able to be part of it as a member of SHPE, but also as a member of as a community member who wants to be here to help you and to help facilitate this wonderful topic that we're going to talk about. So again, I encourage you to make contact with these organizations, and I am stalling just a little bit to give you that last minute to write down that email. So another thing that we got to do before we get started, we got to talk a little bit about some house rules. This is Zoom, no surprise. Nowadays, it's almost like this is the new normal, right? We're going to be in a virtual space. We've chosen to use Zoom today. There are some neat features that are available to you on how you want to look at the view, if you want to look at speakers and so on. So feel free to set that up before we get into the questions. But also something that's very important. Throughout this panel discussion, I'll be asking some questions and you'll get to meet the panelists, but you also have the opportunity to ask some questions yourself. And it's very important, now hear me out, this is very important that you use the Q&A function of Zoom. And I'm gonna go up here and look, see there's 2 different areas here. You want to be in the one labeled Q&A, that's where you wanna start putting your questions together as opposed to the chat. It's very important that if you want your question to be looked at, that it be in the Q&A section. And if you do have a specific question for one of the panelists, as you see their name, make sure and include that, right? This is a question for so-and-so, and then write down your questions. The event hosts have muted your mics. You should only be able to hear me. And this is gonna minimize any background noise or distractions. If you have, again, if you have a need for a question or wanna make a comment, make sure you do it in that Q&A section. All right. Again, a little bit about the agenda today. We'll do some introductions and we're going to jump into some panelists. Again, very excited about the powerhouse of panelists that we have available tonight. I think the only thing that's bigger than their career, their experience, and their personalities is their heart. They really do have a desire to help you, the professional, and if there's some students amongst us, you too, right? Members of these organizations kind of navigate these difficult, what I'll say, STEM careers, right? We all have questions. We're all trying to figure out how to either climb the corporate lattice or whatnot, and these individuals have a passion for helping. And so again, very excited to have you guys here. Like I mentioned again, I will do conduct a few questions, and these questions were taken from feedback from y'all as you were registering. And so that's where the source of those questions is coming from. And then we will be able to get into, like I said, the Q&A, where we'll pick some of your questions that you populate in that Q&A section of the Zoom interface. And last, we have some representatives here, some of the partners, different company recruiters that are going to be talking about some opportunities, right? Part of this is networking and understanding who's out there. And believe it or not, even as we're still dealing with this pandemic, and as the economy has taken a turn, there are still some companies that are out there wheeling and dealing for talent. And so some of those entities are here tonight to kind of share a little bit about who they are and what they have to offer. So very jam-packed evening. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So who am I? This whole time I'm sitting here talking to y'all. I'm looking for confirmation that you can hear me. So I keep looking at the chat. Maybe a thumbs up from TJ would be very welcomed. But my name is Manny De La Cruz. I work with the ExxonMobil Corporation. I am a mechanical engineer by degree, and I am a proud member of SHPE. And so I've been involved with SHPE for the last few years, and overall my heart is in minority recruiting, typically dealing with students, but also helping young professionals. In my career, I've been with the company for working on 10 years now. The first portion of my career was in manufacturing. I worked in plants in Baton Rouge, from being an individual contributor and engineer, all the way to, at one point, making a pivotal decision. Do I want to go technical? Do I want to go management? And I went management. And currently, as of the last year, I am now doing my headquarters experience. So I'm up here in the ExxonMobil headquarters, and I'm doing a role that isn't quite mechanical engineering, but certainly requires my engineering abilities and my ability to learn new things in order to be able to function within that job. Again, I was asked, again, through networking. Networking is amazing to come facilitate this discussion tonight. I am very honored and happy that I was asked. And then when I've gotten to meet some of the panelists in the last couple of days, again, just reinforce that I think we put an awesome bunch together. And again, looking forward for you all to meet them and to start hearing about their experiences. So with that, now we're going to start now to introduce some of our panelists, and you'll be able to hear and see some of their faces other than mine. So let's go ahead and start off with Ms. Katrina.
Hello there. My name is Katrina Barhaus. I work as a ride control systems engineer at Walt Disney Imagineering currently, but I'm here representing SWE LA. I am their VP of Outreach this year. And so, but I've been involved with SWE for the last 10 years or so since my days as a student. So very excited to be able to participate in this panel session with everyone today, this evening, and share a bit of our experience. So I am an electrical engineer from the Milwaukee School of Engineering in Wisconsin, is where I went to school, and I have my master's degree in control systems. And I started out my career in, I've had the ability to work in a lot of different industries since I graduated school in 2009. And started out with the Komatsu Mining Corporation in Wisconsin, working with the autonomous technology for their surface mining equipment, and transitioned to a role working also with autonomous technology, but for a Oshkosh Corporation in Wisconsin, a defense contractor. And in there also, I worked for my undergrad university in their STEM department, working in outreach for a very short period of time. And now I've been with Walt Disney Imagineering for the last 2 years, working on new rides for the parks. So have gone through a few different transitions, and my career started out, some of you might remember, in our economy wasn't really the greatest in 2009 when market started to crash, and I was experiencing some challenges there with a lot of my classmates at the time, trying to find a new position and started our careers. So just happy to share any experience that I have with you guys today, and looking forward to the discussion.
I hope that the panelists heard that and you can start figuring out why we picked Katrina. When you talk about someone who's had like military defense contracting, mining, and somehow goes work for a fun place like Disney, obviously there was some pivoting and some transitions there. Not to mention the experience of having started in the last downturn that we had here. So hopefully the pieces are starting to come together. So Katrina, welcome tonight. Look forward to having a discussion with you and you sharing more of your story. Mr. Brian Jackson, are you with us tonight?
Yes. So Brian Jackson, I am a quality system manager at Eaton Corporation. I have a undergraduate degree from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff in chemistry. Then I actually went on to obtain a quality systems management degree from the National Graduate School for Quality System. And then I just finished up a MBA at the University of North Carolina. My interest in this panel is because I've actually worked in a multitude of different industries. So I started out in pharmaceuticals back in 2002. And actually that was around the time I transcended from being a chapter member of the collegiate ranks in the National Society of Black Engineers, which started back in 1998, to actually being a professional member starting in 2002. So I've been with NSBE for 20 plus years. But I started out in pharmaceuticals, had a stint in retail, worked in automotive. So I've worked in 10 different industries. So taking my quality background and being able to take that and pivot it to different industries and be able to not only pivot from company to company, but also pivot working at one company and then getting other experience and coming back to a company. So it's important how you in relationships so that you can actually transition to come back into a relationship with a company. So we can talk a little bit more about that later on, but have worked as a quality engineer, quality system manager, have been a director of quality, vice president of quality, now back in middle management. So it's been a interesting ride. So yeah. I hope to be able to share more of that with you.
No, for sure, Brian. Look, and welcome to the panel. And of course, we met a couple of days ago, and one thing that struck me was just that you had you continue to get education and continue to stack on those degrees, right? But then you're going in and out. And what caught my attention was for this, and I'm hoping it comes out, and I'm sure it will, is that, hey, how do you maintain those relationships, like you said, so you left the company and returned to it. And that obviously takes some planning, right, and some strategic thinking as you're trying to execute it. So again, Brian, welcome, and very excited to have the participants hear more of your story. So there we go, Mr. Mark, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good.
So everybody out there, I'm Mark Osmondson. I'm here courtesy of SAE. I'm a headhunter and I'm focused on the automotive industry, which when you think about automotive and the companies in it, that can also, that can include original equipment manufacturers, aftermarket, power sports, heavy duty truck, outdoor lifestyle, industrial. So my clients fall within a lot of different sectors. Our firm, Jameson Search, is a boutique firm that's part of the MRI network, which is a network of global recruiting offices, about 600 offices around the world. Within the MRI network, there are recruiters who are focused on any imaginable industry, function, geography. So my experience is focused nationally in the US on the automotive aftermarket primarily. The things that I'll talk about really is informed by the thousands of candidates and clients I talked to over the years. And those candidates, whether they are working or just graduating or just considering making a change, they're all really at that pivot point. And so I find that I'm saying and hearing a lot of the same things over and over again. So hopefully that experience will be beneficial to all of our attendees today.
Perfect, Mark. Again, welcome. What struck me with you initially in the conversations we've had was just the methodical way that you lay out information, right? So again, it certainly works within this group. I think folks are going to appreciate when you start sharing some of your tips just in the manner that you deliver them. Welcome. Very excited to have you on this panel. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Ernest, welcome. Maybe.
Hello, everyone. I have just unmuted myself. So yes, I'm Ernesto Ernie Felix, and I
You
am
left me hanging, Ernest. I've got a little nervous for a second.
Of course not. I would not do a thing like that to you, Manny. Somebody has not turned on my video. Am I supposed to start my video? I guess I will. Okay.
There you go.
Here we go. So I'm Ernesto, and you see the quotes, Ernie Felix, and I am so happy to be here with you. I am representing SHPE tonight. I've been involved with the SHPE organization since the early 2000s, and served as on the board of directors for SHPE from 2015 to 2020, and as the treasurer, the national treasurer of the organization. On the other side of my life here, I have been with Intel Corporation 25 years. I have over 35 years of professional experience. I have transitioned from I started in high tech right out of college. I am not an engineer, but those that are outside of the engineering fields do also go through transitions and change jobs and change industries, and I have done that. I have international experience. I did an expat assignment in Brazil. I have done assignments in Malaysia, and made a number of transitions. I am a proud SHPE lifetime member and a proud family man. I have 4 women in my life, my wife, 2 daughters, and a granddaughter. So that is a little bit about me, and I'm here to share whatever you would like to ask me. I will share it.
Ernie, certainly welcome again, and as always, nice to see you again, right? I get to see your nice face again. But what caught my attention with you, right? So when we were having this pre-conference and trying to get ready for this event, it was around your long-standing career that you've had with Intel, and certainly pivoting and making transitions can take on different meanings, right, at different stages, and certainly even internally within a company, right? For me, that was the part that resonated personally, and very interested in those that are thinking about pivoting and making decisions within a company. That's also a set of questions that I'm sure that are going to come out. So again, welcome to all the panelists. Very excited to have these conversations and to share. Everybody's video and audio is coming in good. So I'm very happy and excited about that. Ernie, I'm glad you got yours fixed as well. So look, we're going to start with you, Ernie. I have you here, so might as well start backwards and start asking some of these questions. Okay. Another reminder, so folks, as you're starting to have questions and you're hearing some of the narrative, and let's say you have a specific question for Ernie. Again, reminder, in the Q&A portion, not the chat, ask your question. If you want a specific panelist to answer the question, make sure that you attach the name to that question, and then that way I know who to ask it to, and so on. So without further ado, so Ernie, I want to ask you a question about factors that drove you to decide that it was time for a pivot. When you did do that, how did you know that it was the right time or the decision for you at that time?
That's a great question, and I'll answer it by saying from a personal side is, was I having fun at my job? Was I continued to be challenged in the role that I had? Did I wake up and say, damn, I'm really excited to go and do what I do for a living? So when things started to, in some of the roles to shift where, okay, I'm not really challenged here. I started to look and see, well, what else is there? From a business perspective, I look at, okay, I'm having fun. This is great, but is there any longevity in what I'm doing? Because it may be something that the company is looking at end of lifing, or reading the tea leaves, the little things that happen in an organization. Okay, this business group is really a strong business group, but you know that for a fact that resources are being allocated somewhere else, and all of a sudden you may, if you don't read those tea leaves, you may all of a sudden be left without a role, and you may be having to take a role just to take a role. So those are some of the things that really I look at when I say, okay, maybe it's time.
Gotcha. So Mark, I kind of want to ask you a little bit kind of in the same space. You can kind of incorporate this question, but I'm very interested in like preparations that you make as you're pivoting your career. Most importantly, like when you lack certain skills or experiences that are required for a new career path, how does one navigate that?
Great question. So again, based on conversations I've had with a lot of different people, first, there are people who are forced to pivot through no fault of their own, which could be a great time to reassess what you want to be doing. And sometimes that means changing industries. Sometimes it means taking a different direction within an industry that you're very familiar with. So the first thing that I recommend to people I'm talking with is, if you're currently employed, what have you discussed with your supervisor or HR to determine what career path you have within the current organization? So the idea being, before somebody like me reaches out to you, maybe you can get all the things that you're looking for within the organization. If that means moving to a different department or getting some new skills, oftentimes the company will have a process by which that can be done. Maybe partner you with a mentor, right? I know that in terms of mentorship, SAE actually has a mentorship program. So take advantage of mentorship programs, people that you know and trust, to help give you it's the skill set in part, but also, you know, the backstory on what it's like if maybe that pivot you learn isn't really the right choice for you after you talk to somebody who's been doing it for a while. So you know, talk with your supervisor. If you can get the things you're looking for without leaving your current organization, you're better off, especially if it comes to a point where you've got an offer in hand from another company, you go to leave and your current company says, we want you to stay. It becomes very uncomfortable. You'll know where you stand if you have this conversation early on. Deciding what those things are, I always tell people, do what you want. I think Ernie said it, you know, was he happy? If you don't wake up every day going, wow, this is going to be fun, then maybe it's time to consider making a change, right?
No, definitely. So Brian, I kind of want to hear from you on the same topic, right? You had mentioned that you've had experience in multiple companies, but you've also kind of have pursued other degrees. You know, so I'm curious to hear your take as to what do you do, or what would you recommend somebody do in preparation for a pivot if there is a gap in skills or training or understanding of something technical?
All right, so yeah, that's actually a very interesting question. So it falls into two different realms for me. One is know your personal value proposition. And the second piece is understand the value of the prospective group, organization, or anything that you're actually looking to delve into. So as far as knowing your own value proposition, that goes with vet your work experience against either your current requirements or a future job requirement internally or externally to the company, because this could take, I mean, this basically allows you to come up with formalized, repeatable practices if you look to do this internally or externally. Second is ask questions to better understand why things are done a certain way. So if you're entering another organization, or if you're looking at inside your organization, understand that there are ways that things are done. So understanding how things are done helps you to have a better understanding of how you want to utilize the skill set you have to pivot. And then basically any changes that you're proposing to either the new organization or the one that you're coming in the interviewing process, or just the vetting it mentally. Basically understanding that that needs to be based off some previous experience you've had in that realm or conversation you had. As far as understanding the value of the prospective employer or internal group, basically you research the company and the website, assess your network, members or individuals in your personal network who have either worked in that part of the business or at that company. Conduct informational interviews. So basically that gives you a better understanding of the internal culture inside of another company or inside another business unit. Because even though you work for the same company, because you're looking at a different business unit, something may be more important. There are always competing priorities. So understanding which priority is 1 and which priority is 10 is the difference between you're working on the right stuff or you're working on the wrong stuff. And then basically evaluate what your negotiables are and what your non-negotiables are, and vet that information based off of what you found out about the culture. So if you realize that there are non-negotiables and that is in the culture of the group, it may not be a good fit for you. But if it aligns with what's important to you and it's a challenge or something that actually makes you wake up in the morning and say you want to go to work, that may be a way you may want to pivot. And then leverage your skill sets to add value. So I'll talk about, I think you have another question about this, but also remember that there are opportunities where there may be things that are asked of you that actually may fall on skill sets that wasn't in that set of requirements for the position. Be able to sometimes step outside that role and actually do things that actually are built upon the skill sets you have, and that actually shows the extra value that you bring to the table.
Kind of like where you took that, right? So it was like you said, hey, there's a lot. It's not just necessarily identifying gaps in your technical understanding or what the job's about. Like you said, hey, there's more to it. You got to understand, don't forget about the culture stuff. Don't forget about, any of, and whether or not you can find somebody at the new location, new group, new company, whatever, and start answering some of those questions. And I love the way you put that even before you started talking about skills, right? Like, anyway, that's a very interesting take. So Katrina, I kind of want to ask you, I want you to go back in time and think about when you were still trying to get that first opportunity, where you were still trying to decide which way that you wanted to go with your career. What advice would you give yourself when you were first starting your career that you didn't know, but know now?
Oh my gosh, there's probably a lot of things. I think there's a few things. Most importantly, I think what I've noticed is that take myself back to when, as a student just starting out my career, you think that you have to have a plan, the plan figured out. You have to have your roadmap figured out, and that it's going to be pretty straightforward, or that you should know what industry or area you want to go into. And like most of us have probably figured throughout our career so far, that's very rarely the case. And you can't really predict what turns your career is going to take you to. And so to really look for the opportunities that come your way from what you can learn from each of those opportunities, even if it didn't fall within what you expected you would see yourself doing. But I think to that point, something I would recommend to myself or to students now as you're starting in a new company or new position is to learn from that company's expertise. Every company has a different bread and butter. Each company is going to be, the best in the industry at what they do. And even if it's not what you expected you would be doing, you have a really unique opportunity to learn from their best practices, to learn from their industry, to learn from that area, and to help you grow into where you'd like to go. And I think the other thing I would recommend is to try and a little bit along the lines of what Brian was saying, in going outside of your skill set, to try and help others on your team or that might approach you as much as you can, and to contribute the most you can to your project or to that company, to their mission, because ultimately it's always going to be about contributing to that company's mission towards helping their customer, towards making the best product that you can, and remembering that things are not necessarily about, myself or about any team member in particular, but about our cumulative effort and dedication to that end goal, and helping out as much as we can is something I would really recommend to anyone starting out.
It sounds like you would have a very long coffee talk with yourself and talk about patience and longer term view and kind of looking a little bit at what the opportunities are. Like, Ernie, I want to hear in the same context from you, right? So it's always very, I think, beneficial. And Katrina kind of mentioned it, to use the experiences that are available. So Ernie, you've had a longer career. If you were to grab yourself from the shoulders and sit young Ernie down, anything you would tell yourself to do different?
Oh my God. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I would do different, and experience is great, and I sometimes get a little creative with trying to remember things. So I have an acronym for this. So I call it the draft, and the draft is the D part is don't sell yourself short. I remember in my careers, I would look sometimes at opportunities that came up, and I go, well, I don't have the skills and experience that this particular requisition has. I don't have 100% of those. Well, you know what? After industry experience of 35 plus years, you don't have to have all of those. You bring a lot of you can bring 50% of them, and the other 50 you can learn on that job. So that's one thing. So don't sell yourself short. Don't not go for an opportunity because you don't think you have all of the skills. That's one thing. The other thing is risk taking. So that's the R for the draft. If you aren't taking at least, or if you aren't failing at least 20% of the time in what you do, you aren't taking enough risks. You have to be bold and go out and take some risks. Go out and try out for a big jump in a job. So you may not get it, but you'll get the visibility. You'll get the visibility as you talk to people. The A part is ask for help. As I was growing up, and when I grew up, asking for help was kind of a sign of weakness. My dad said, "Oh no, you got to do it yourself," and that kind of stuff. No, ask for help. The people have talked about mentors. Go talk to people that have done that job before, and get the gist of what that job is about. So that's the A part. The F part is failing is okay. I right now I'm in the throes of launching this huge program about mentoring, and I talk to people and say, hey, if you fail, it's okay. The important thing about failing is you have to come out of it stronger. What did you learn? What can you do to make yourself a better contributor, a better person? So that's the F part. And the last part is for the T is timing, and or time. Sometimes it takes time to get to where you want to be. I remember when I came out of college, I said, okay, I'm going to be CEO of a company in 5 years. Yeah, right. Okay, so it takes time, and Katrina mentioned about a roadmap and mapping and how to adjust, right? Because the roadmap is not going to go the way you first started. So be patient, but be deliberate.
I don't know. I appreciate that, and I want to come back to you, Katrina, because one thing that happens when we pivot or when we take a chance, and that's okay. And I like the way Ernie said it: is, hey, if you're not failing 20% of the time, maybe you're too comfortable. Maybe it's a sign, right? There's a lot of different things that can go that way. So can you share with us, Katrina, a time when maybe a pivot didn't necessarily go as planned? How did you react? What did you do? What did you gain from it?
Sure. I think, we get ideas or opportunities come about that seem like the transition you want to or need to take in that moment. And like you were just saying, I think everything has to come with a certain amount of risk, and that the greatest opportunities for learning and growing always come about, and success, when you're able to to try those. And you know, fortunately, I was early in my career when this transition, you know, kind of occurred that didn't turn out to be the position I had been wanting to stay in for long term. And so I think the biggest thing is that everything recognizing exactly that that was a risk that didn't go according to, you know, your expectations, but using it as a learning opportunity to grow into your next positions. And that might not be, in my case, I found out that much later on, more recently, the experience I had in that opportunity came about to help me in a very different way than I had expected. And so the things are going to come around in your experiences, even the ones that might take a turn you didn't expect, are always going to come back to help you in one way or another down the line. And that ultimately all of those turns are going to lead you to what, you know, get you closer to what you want to do and to what, you know, what will become either your specialty or your next transition. And sometimes the best way to figure out what you do want and what you do like is by finding out what you don't like and what's not going to work. But no, I think the biggest things is just realizing that that was an opportunity that, you know, that you learn from being able to take that risk and become more comfortable in uncomfortable situations, and in accepting those risks and challenges that come along to help you grow into a stronger person.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. So this last, I got one more question, and Mark, I'm going to don't answer yet, but I'm going to come back to you, and I kind of want you to lay out you know, how one can look at the factors that are associated with pivoting. But before I do that, I want to remind all the panelists, right? If you do, not the panelists, I'm sorry, the participants. If you do have a question, please be populating them in that Q&A section. Again, if you want a question to go to a specific person, please add their name. Otherwise, we're gonna choose for you. And I'm sure you guys have some questions that you want to start populating. So Mark, go ahead, please share with us how you view that somebody looks and the factors that are involved when someone's deciding to pivot.
Well, playing off of what everybody here has said, everybody on this call, participants, panelists, everybody, we're all problem solvers, right? We will solve a problem for a company. So part of assessing all of this is, okay, what kinds of problems do we want to solve, but also what kinds of problems need to be solved, right? And so, as Brian was saying, sometimes it's a matter of stepping outside your comfort zone, but maybe volunteering for projects that are where you want to broaden your base. He also mentioned, you know, this is a two-way street, and so assessing the cultural aspects are important. You know, there's a lot of questions to be asked for both parties as you're moving through this process, whether you're staying with a company or changing companies. But the biggest thing that I find myself repeating to candidates is, you know, find the things that you want to be doing, and sometimes figuring out what that is really tough, especially if you're currently affected by COVID and you've been working for the same company for 25 years, you've never had to look for a job. Where does one start? So at the risk of sharing another acronym, mine is CLAMPS, Ernie, and so I'll share what those are. So CLAMPS refers to challenge, location, advancement, money, people, and security. And I'll repeat that, but I'll also paste it into the chat so that people have it. The thing about challenge, location, advancement, money, people, and security is that everybody on this call will define and rank those things uniquely, right? So figuring out what kinds of challenges are going to invigorate you. For some people, they can't relocate. So maybe location becomes their number one priority, right? Some of these are really vague, and that's on purpose. Brian and I had a conversation the other day about people, right? For some, that people piece is literally, I want to sit next to somebody I can enjoy talking to, or I want to work with a specific clientele. For others, it's more general culture, right? But define and rank challenge, location, advancement, money, people, and security. If you're unemployed, or if you're currently employed, talk to HR with those objectives in mind, right? If you're unemployed, use what you learn from this introspection to inform what you want to be doing next, to help you target companies. So in terms of process, engineers, I hope will appreciate this. I'm not an engineer either. So you can do the let's trick the recruiter, the headhunter with an engineering question if we ever talk. But, you know, if you're newly graduated, think about the experiences you gained in doing certain projects, your past work history. It all factors into these steps that you're taking. We're all taking baby steps as we go. And it was talked about earlier. Sometimes it's not the right step and you learn the hard way, but I've also learned that sometimes the door closes, another one opens, right? So that can be a great thing in terms of the next steps of your career. So again, if you're pivoting outside of your current level of expertise or area of expertise, volunteer for projects that'll get you that experience. Volunteer for assignments that maybe are a little outside your comfort zone. Seek some mentors. As I mentioned, SAE has a mentorship program. I can also paste the link to access that in the chat. In terms of how you can promote yourself, and maybe that's a separate question, Manny, you need to tell me, but there are ways that people can promote their expertise, primarily, in my view, through LinkedIn. We recruiters live in LinkedIn. We do searches through LinkedIn. We're in our feeds constantly. So the more you can have an accurate depiction of the problems you've solved, not what you were responsible for solving, but how you were successful in solving those problems within your LinkedIn profile and your resume, that's the first thing you want to do. Is when you're ready to make that pivot, update your LinkedIn, update your resume, talk about your successes, because that's what hiring managers want to hear about. And then, frankly, target companies that embody the values, that make the products that have the culture you understand to be directional to what you want. Target the companies. Don't wait. Don't apply and hope. If you're applying, send an email. Make a phone call to the switchboard to a hiring manager if you have to. But be proactive about the process, not only with that introspective piece, but outreach. The more you do in LinkedIn, the more likely somebody like me will find you. So that I think is probably one of the most, I don't know, valuable pieces of a conversation I have with any candidate. Is it's hard to be found right now. The whole process kind of sucks. Yeah. You apply, you never hear anything. Sometimes you have interviews and you get ghosted. So you have to be your own best advocate, right? So grow your network with recruiters. One never knows what's going to cross my desk tomorrow. You know, grow your network with people at those companies that you think embody the things that you're looking for as it relates to challenge, location, advancement, money, people, and security. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, it does, Mark. I appreciate you sharing that. And certainly, and what I love about this entire discussion, and I hope the listeners are catching on to this, is that, hey, there's some things that you might hear as a student that you hear early on in your career, mid-career, and even late career. And some of those are the same, right? It's almost like get back to the basics, but understand where you're at in what stage and what do some of these factors mean to you, and kind of make plans and react. So it's very interesting to see some of the same type of themes come out from all of y'all with maybe a little bit different twist based on your experiences. However, again, I'm always a huge advocate for like networking and trying to find coaches and using, like you said, LinkedIn and reaching out. And again, those of you that are listening, I encourage y'all to reach out to all of these panelists. We all have our LinkedIn profiles. And again, as I started this conversation, that I said, we're all here for a reason, is because we want to help. So you have this availability if you want it. Hey, take us up on the offer. If not, well, that's on you. But look, now we have sets of questions that are coming straight from the audience. and I'm not surprised. We're going to get into some very detailed stuff. All right, get ready. First and foremost, Ernie, who are you going to vote for? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to ask you who you're going to vote for. No, that's not how
I
it
can
goes.
tell you.
This one's going to go for Brian. So we have several questions, Brian, about your MBA. Can you discuss, help the audience understand two things? And I think this goes every time I hear post-grad degrees and this topic. Tell us about the timing, like where in your career did you decide it, and then the motivation behind it.
All right, so I answered one question in the chat, but it was so basically. Let me talk about the first degree, and then I'll talk about the MBA. So I went back in like 2015. So I'll say that's my transition from early career to mid career, where I've always been working in quality, and basically what I wanted to is basically outside of years of experience, I wanted to make sure I had something else that validated that I had this experience and this was a realm of expertise of mine. So I went back and got my degree in quality system management. And that was from a school that actually specialized in that area. So it was a specialized degree just so that in my thought process, at the end of the day, I wanted to be a vice president of quality. So having that understanding along with some cross-functional experience was where I was looking. Now, when it came to my MBA, what I ended up finding is I moved into a director's position, doing well, but at the same time, there were parts of conversation that I wasn't easily grasping because they were talking in different vernacular than I had been used to. So I'd moved from a manager position directly into a director's position, and I felt that I had some gaps. So at the time, I had a conversation with my CEO and say, hey, I'm thinking about an MBA. He was like, you don't need that. You're doing great right now. But I was like, yeah, but I want to grow my career past this. This is not my ceiling. So I want to be able to, because I was at a small company, I want to be able to do this not only in the small company realm, but go back into major corporations and be able to climb those ranks in that organization. So that was my driving force for going back and getting my MBA, to build that business acumen and be able to speak the talk of P&L and all those different vantage points to be able to leverage the engineering and the operations experience I had with the master's degree.
Also, it was definitely driven by you understanding. And I love the self-awareness where you're like, hey, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to go. This is a self-identified gap. Granted, you also talked earlier about getting others involved, but I can see how, and I want folks to hear that and really focus in on that you have to have some introspective thinking and a real hard, honest conversation with your current self in the mirror and say, I am missing this, right? And then act is always a big part. So now, Ernie, this is a real one, okay? What recommendation do you have for pivoting from a technical career into a D&I space?
You know, that's a great question. When I was in the D&I space at Intel, I hired a couple of engineers to come and work on my team. And I can tell you that the transition from engineering to D&I is a hell of a lot easier than from D&I to engineering. So that's a big plus. But some of the things that I would mention to do is start getting involved with your employee resource group programs. Show some leadership in that space. Get visibility with the D&I team. Start maybe ask for shadowing folks in the D&I team. Go out and recruit for the D&I team when they're going out to schools or when they're going out to the NSBE conference, the SHPE conferences and things like that. And show your interest and maybe say, hey, I'd like to come in and do a dot assignment, which is kind of transition role, a temporary assignment, development assignment. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes those dot assignments turn into real longer term jobs. So those are some of the things that I would mention.
Perfect. So Katrina, I gotta have a little bit of a hard one, not a hard one, but this is something that, and I'm glad that those of you that asked this, kind of asked this, right? So there is part of pivoting is completely, you're in one company and you're leaving, right? And that can have its own kind of stigma or its own kind of, it can maybe send the wrong message if you're not careful with it. And it's something that folks have to navigate as they're going from one company to another. So the question is around, how do you handle the stigma and the questioning during the interviewing and the networking? And some of the comments is that I find that in a lot of interviews, recruiters get confused as to why they're even being talked to.
That's a really good question. And I think it's something that a lot of us think a lot about as we're transitioning careers, or as one opportunity comes up and you're coming across something new. But I think the important thing is to come up with and to share in that interview or in that interaction why you are the best person for that position, and what drove you to approach them, and why you're going to be a good fit to help them fill their role. And even if that means, even if you came from experiences in other locations, oftentimes, I think I saw another question on this, there's a lot of similarities even between, in a particular role that you might be qualified for, even if it's between industries. A lot of our industries end up being pretty small, close-knit groups by the time you get down to suppliers or technology you might use, or standards you're familiar with, or processes that you've used in the past. Things might have a different name in a different industry, or come under a different number, a standard or something like that. But often there's a lot of those similarities that you can pull to help them understand what you did in your previous position and how that really aligns with what they're looking for.
So yours is more of like, hey, try and take the question, right? Well, and just to, again, for clarifying, I want to make sure that whoever asked this gets what they want, right? And so it's like, hey, some, I'm Manny, Katrina, I'm coming to you as the hiring manager. It's like, look, and essentially, if you were to ask me and say, Manny, why are you leaving? Why do you want to leave where you're at, right? And I think part of your answer was, hey, find a way to focus on what you bring to the table, and maybe control the conversation a little bit. But is there any tactic or any recommendation specific to that very direct question? Or everybody always imagines that someone's going to put them on the spot. Why do you want to leave? Any recommendations on how to handle tactfully that particular component?
I think, and I can only speak from my experience.
Sure.
And in my experience, most of my transitions have been because I was ready to grow into another position, or I wanted a bit more experience in a different area. And so, opportunities provided growth in a certain sense that I was looking for compared to the positions that I was in. Never had any, I haven't really had any transitions very many other than for those reasons. And so, turning it into what you're looking to change or learn or grow from. A lot of times, now there's a lot of things that are happening not out of our choosing, right? A lot of trouble with the economy, and a lot of our positions and companies are going through difficult times. And I think it's important to just, and I think that's going to be understood. A lot of things happen. Everyone is in a different place, and the important thing is, I think, just to be straightforward with your team in that sense, or with the person you're speaking to in that sense, to share, hey, my position got eliminated, or my department went through this situation, and I'm looking for something else. Really love what you're doing. This is why this appeals to me, or, and express what brought you to that point.
Perfect. So Mark, we heard from Katrina, right, on a little bit on her experience. Of course, we all could sit here and maybe give our own opinion, but we kind of heard how to handle an internal, but also, hey, when you're actually talking with that new company that you want to align with, or that new opportunity. From your perspective as a headhunter, as a recruiter, is there a right way and a wrong way in dealing or interacting with the recruiter when you're trying to make a transition?
It comes down to what your objectives are. So first, sometimes changing industries can be tough. And yes, there's often pushback from HR or a hiring manager to say, what I want is somebody who's already been doing what I need done. So you have to overcome that objection. The challenge is you don't know what they need done necessarily because their job description or their posting isn't going to tell you, and your resume unfortunately won't necessarily reflect how you can solve that problem. So it's about, in some cases, transferable skills, right? It's my understanding that you are looking for X, Mr. or Miss hiring manager. I did that at Disney in my Imagineering job, and I did it in this way. Here was the situation. Here's the action I took. Here was the result, and be as direct as you can with the metrics of that result, right? But to Katrina's point, some of this is, look, my objectives are X. I want to grow my career in this direction. And, taking that risk, whether it's the hiring manager taking a risk on you or you taking a risk on pivoting into a new career, again, sometimes it's worth taking that risk. And the only way you can know that is by asking really good questions. It's a two-way street. They're asking questions of you. You need to ask questions of them. If the cultural fit isn't there, if the qualifications and experience isn't there, then it's not the right fit. So move on. But your objectives are equally as important as it relates to your question, Manny. I'll give you an example. I had a client. It's an automotive aftermarket company. They had a product management job they were looking to fill. They said, we don't need somebody who necessarily has experience in the industry. What we want, however, if they don't have experience in the industry, we want somebody who's one of our customers. We want somebody who's an enthusiast, okay? So the candidate that was placed came from the fitness industry. He, however, was a candidate, or excuse me, a client, a customer of my client. He's used their products. He's an enthusiast. It's a beautiful fit. They love him. He loves them. You just never know what they're looking for until you have the conversation. So that Q&A between the two becomes really important. And your objectives and their objectives have to meet somewhere in the middle.
And so is there a bit, I guess I'm going off the cuff here, but is there, in your opinion, who has the onus in that situation to be able to come in with a plan to clearly, communicate skills and their narrative?
Both have to communicate effectively what they're looking for, but I think it's up to the candidate to describe how they can solve that problem. So getting back to, your resume, it's not going to do a great job of telling how you can solve the problem, only because you don't always know what the specific problem is. Moreover, hiring managers in HR, out of necessity, oftentimes they have to look for reasons to disqualify a candidate. So somebody from outside the industry, they may just set it to the side, especially now with unemployment as it is, in the hopes that they'll find somebody who more closely meets that criteria. So it becomes incumbent upon the candidate to give them the reason to talk to them, right? One reason you want to grow relationships with recruiters, we want to talk with everybody. You never know when my conversation with you, Manny, will be directed to something my client needs tomorrow. I may not have a role I'm working on today, but tomorrow I might, 6 months from now I might. So growing your network within, especially recruiters who focus on either your function or your geography or your industry or all of the above, is really important.
Perfect. Brian, this one's for you. It's about failure. Very direct, and you need to answer to the decimal point. Have you failed 20% of your time? No, more importantly, if so, how did you pick yourself up after a failure?
So yeah, it'll be somewhere around 20-25%. So yes, I have. And I've actually had some epic fails where they were, and that's where a lot of my introspection has come from. I've had those moments where I've made some career-ending failures that I had to go back to the table and take a look at, okay, what do I bring to the table? What do I want to do? Where do I want to be? I'm more of that flexible person. So my skills have been kind of easier to fill in multiple different industries. But at the same time, you have to have an understanding of where you want to take your career. And that's through any extra degrees or any of those other things. But I think one of the things is once you fail, owning that failure is the first thing. Second thing is a postmortem. What did I learn from what I went through, and where was that point where I made that turn to make that mistake? If I could have done anything different, what could that have been? So that you have that information to the side, but then pick yourself up and then try again. Because the thing about it is that a failure is only a failure if you don't get up and continue on. As long as you're continuing on, it's just a learning opportunity for you to grow from.
No, I agree. And certainly I like to put in there, it's okay to like process, right? I mean, it's okay to sit there when you fail and sit there and say, you got to deal, right? Sometimes whenever you fail, but that can't be going on forever. I like where you're saying, hey, eventually you got to act and you got to do something about it, right?
Yeah. So
Katrina, earlier in your, as part of your introduction and part of your first started sharing your narrative, right? You threw a little caveat out there and you said, hey, I started my career during the last pandemic. So this question is around that. In the midst of this pandemic, it may be especially difficult for a new grad to find a job due to competition and availability. How should one go about when deciding their first job specifically? And this is, I know it's going to be tough. Should you go for a job from the first offer that you get, or should you wait to see what comes up on the table and if things get better? What's your recommendation?
I think if there's everyone who's going to school now and graduating now is going to be, is going to grow into very strong leaders, just, with everything that we're dealing with now, and you being able to, finish your studies and graduate. So congratulations to everyone for that. There's no doubt this is a really tough time, but I think the important thing with that light is to be flexible with what you, with what your expectations might be, just given whatever situation you might be in and what you're looking for in an opportunity. A lot of classmates and of mine when we graduated ended up having a harder time finding a position in the end if we didn't want to move, or we're looking for a particular industry, or had more requirements on what we were looking for compared to those who might have been open to receive what opportunities came their way. So I think if you get an opportunity and an offer presented to you, I think that's wonderful and that's very exciting. And but that's something you'll have to weigh. There's definitely a lot of people that'll be certainly in your same situation.
No, for sure. And I like how you put on there, hey, the flexibility and the adaptability, this is key, right? This is when you say, hey, if you're going to claim that as a skill, now's kind of the time to prove it, right? And being a little bit open to what happens in that first one. I think it's also like you had mentioned, as far as your expectations, right? And so one, I think there's, you kind of have to do a little homework and understand what exactly is happening in the economy, and understanding who is and isn't hiring. And why are they hiring, and what does that mean? I think the classic example right now is like a petroleum engineer trying to get into oil and gas right now. And look, I'm speaking because that's what I know. It's almost that to me is one individual who's going to have to be flexible and adapt given the situation, and adjust some of the expectations. But on the same note, like if you're not educating yourself as to why the economy went the way that it did, then you might be barking up the wrong tree, right? I'm still,
Right.
I like where you took that, where you said, hey, there's an element of being flexible and aligning your expectations with what is going on. So this one's for Ernie. How do you weigh risk when pivoting? For example, how do you weigh staying with your current company or taking a new opportunity that you have not experienced before? Specifically, and this one's also wrapped around the pandemic, right? It's like, how would you handle that, and does it change because we have a pandemic in our midst?
Oh, why do you ask me a hard question?
Oh, I love seeing you cringe. No, I'm just kidding.
You see the smoke coming out of my head. Well, I think what I would do is I would look at Some of the panelists have talked about doing some research on, all right, see, what is happening within my company? Are you happy? Are you excited to do what you're doing today? Is there a reason to change? And if the pandemic is going to potentially change that in the next 3 to 6 months, next 12 months, and look at that other company that may be courting you, or that you're considering to take an additional role. What's happening in that company? So it's doing your homework, talking to people, talking with your mentors, and if you have a relationship with your manager, that some people may not have that type of relationship with their manager that says, hey, I'm considering, I've been here 25 years, I'm considering looking at something else. What do you think about this? And so that is another thing that is an option. Sometimes it could be a risky option, talking with your manager. So those are some of the things that I would do. Look at currently, why am I even entertaining this? Am I not having fun at what I'm doing? The other is what potential gains do I have, and what is happening in that particular company and or industry, and assess those things.
Awesome. And for Mark, I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I got one question I'm going to ask Mark, and then I have one in general for all the panelists. So first, Mark, is it worth, in your opinion, to sacrifice years of experience in your prior specialization and therefore drop in, and maybe a drop in salary, in order to pursue a new career path with or without an advanced degree?
It's a great question, and the easiest way to answer it is to say that your objectives are uniquely your own, and you shouldn't apologize for them. I think somebody used the word stigma before with pivoting outside of their expertise, and I don't like that word. And in this case, is there a stigma with taking a step back to go in a different direction? Frankly, whatever your objectives are, you may not have to take a step back. You may not have to take a reduction in compensation. Every circumstance is going to be unique. So no, you don't have to. And frankly, if you're looking at the long game and you can see that making this change for you is going to either be more satisfying, make you happier, give you a better work-life balance, keep you in the location you're in, whatever it is, then it's absolutely worth chasing it, right? Again, there are, in our view, there are 6 things that you're weighing with every choice to pivot, and those are uniquely your own. You may have to capitulate a little bit on some of them, but the idea is to don't settle.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark, for that. So look, we got of course, this is being broadcast. This could be recorded, and people from all over the country are going to be able to see it, even the world, possibly. You guys never know. You guys are going to go viral globally. No, but we definitely have a Southern California focus here tonight, right? And so one question that I kind of want to ask all of y'all and get your opinion is, and again, this is strictly opinion, right? I'm going to caveat that. I know, this might not be your area of expertise. Maybe it is. And if it is, claim it so. If not, I'm kind of I'm giving us an umbrella here. Okay. So this is strictly in your opinion. We won't hold you to this. Where do you think the growth, in what industry do you think the growth in Southern California is going to be, let's say, in the next decade? We can start with, we'll start with Katrina.
My goodness, I think I moved to Southern California 2 years ago, so I think I'm still learning the industries in Southern California myself. But I think it's certain that this, pandemic and the situation we're in is going to have a huge, and we've already seen that in a lot of industries, in services and our new routines, the things that have become very useful to us. I think things like, just anecdotally, things like all the online services, online deliveries, grocery store delivery, all that, along with a lot of the healthcare and health, technology, or defense, perhaps, industries are going to likely still be growing for a long time based on, their current needs in this industry, right now. But I would caveat that with, like I said, I'm still figuring that out myself as transition here to Southern California.
I get that. I knew there was a very variety of experience here. So this is all opinions, But no, definitely have a view, right? It's still, I think, very valuable to kind of hear, and it gives you an idea of perspectives as to what people are hearing out there, maybe, and maybe there's some follow up. How about you, Ernie? What do you think?
Oh, I agree with Katrina with some of what she said. I think the health industry is one thing that is going to definitely grow. I think the pivot that the entertainment industry is going to make, and by that I mean, we are going to get out of this pandemic in a new normal, and how I know my daughter works in the marketing and entertainment field for uh, companies that are doing live shows. Well, heck, how many live shows are happening these days, right? And so the entertainment industry is pivoting. How do we continue to survive, and how do we make the revenue that we were making with and attract the audiences? So I don't know, this again, my opinion, I'm not an expert here, but I think the pivot that the entertainment industry will probably yield some new lives into different types of jobs that are out there. And the last one is construction. I think that as we start rebuilding our nation, and the freeways in the Southern California area are fantastic, right? uh, they need some help, and I think that is going to also take off, in my opinion.
Perfect. Brian, how about you?
So I think one would be just technology in general. So with the pandemic, with everything that's been virtual, I think there are going to be some additional changes that happen in that space that's going to broaden that arena, because it's just going to be forced to happen. And then I think people are going to go back to traveling as soon as they get a chance. And I think that boom is going to cause growth in people that never flew before. Once they feel it's safe again, will fly more so than they did before the pandemic, I think, because everybody's going to be so used to being at home that they're going to want to get away. And people that never took trips are going to be taking trips.
And Mark, what is your prediction for the future? Lock it in right now.
Well, as in my home in Utah, I can be the guy who is outside looking in and saying, I don't have a clue about the California economy, except with some anecdotes with regard to the automotive industry, right?
Okay.
Automotive technology continues to grow all over the country, and in Northern California in particular. With regard to aftermarket, it still remains, California is still the epicenter of car culture. So I think there, at least within the automotive industry, which is what I know, there will always be industry there. There will always be companies there. The fact that it's close to Asia, I think, is going to be a factor in that regard as well. When I talk to candidates, the only one of the two things that they cite is not wanting to move to California is either cost of living or cultural. And so it's, yeah, I absolutely want to go, or no, I can't go, right? So I think that there's going to be somewhat of a rebound, at least within automotive, and it's going to be in new technologies primarily, whether that's software, whether that is new ADAS and LiDAR types of technologies. Well, it remains to be seen.
Awesome. Look, so panelists, I want to thank y'all very much for coming on here. And it never surprises me anymore how fast we can burn when we're having a good conversation amongst people that have the desire and the passion to help and share their stories, right? So thank you very much for that. And it's definitely been my pleasure to ask y'all these questions. And more than anything, I think the audience has benefited from your honesty and your openness. So what we're going to do, again, thank you very much. And what we're going to do now is, as we promised, we have a few of the supporters, right, that are here to kind of talk a little bit about what they have to offer. And just to make sure that we're good here. Do we have a representative from Amazon? Okay, I'm gonna.
Oh, I think I got cut off, but I think I'm back. Am I here? All right. Hi, Manny. Well, hey, everybody. Thank you for such a great panel. That was very interesting. I was taking notes. I've been asked to make this somewhat brief so that we can all have our time, so I'll endeavor to do so. Just talking a little bit about Amazon. Our main mission is to be the world's most customer-centric company. By customer, that can mean a lot of things. For a lot of the groups that I represent, the customers are internal. I represent a lot of our internal HR groups, primarily focused around technology. Amazon's a big company, growing fast. From August 2019 to July of 2020, we went from 550,000 employees to 800,000 employees. One of the things that I kind of picked up on from Mark was his CLAMPS acronym. I am going to borrow that one. I think it's a great one, but I think of those, one that I can really identify with in Amazon is security. Even with the economic downturn that we've had recently, Amazon has been a rather uniquely positioned company with regard to the products that we ship in terms of grocery shopping, AWS, web hosting, streaming video, streaming music, and physical products. I think we offer a lot of opportunity in a lot of different ways for people to advance their career and to basically have a firm place to stay for a long time and for that career advancement. We hire in a lot of different areas. The ones that I specialize in are technical. So any software development engineers, managers, technical program management, product management, technical product management. Those are all areas that we are actively hiring in, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about. You can all find me on LinkedIn. I believe I'm the only Kenny Strand at Amazon at this point, so feel free to reach out if you have an interest. But thank you again for having me, and thank you again for hosting such a great event.
Perfect, Kenny. Thank you for that information. How about Boeing?
Hi, good evening, everyone.
How's it going, Leo?
I'm doing good, Manny. Thank you. Thank you for this great event. Thank you to the panelists. I just want to highlight very quickly here, opportunities at Boeing. I do currently work at Boeing Space and Launch, which we are hiring primarily in the Southern California area, and we are hiring all disciplines of engineers. From mechanical, electrical, computer engineers, we are hiring of all kinds. Where can you find these jobs? For entry levels, we are hiring at boeing.com/careers, and you can find all the careers that we are currently looking for, from entry level to mid-career professionals as well. For intern opportunities, you want to go to boeing.com/college careers, and you'll be able to see the list of intern opportunities that we are looking for. Again, this is out of Boeing Space and Launch, primarily in the Southern California area. You will find locations alternate to Southern California, outside in the different Boeing locations, including Texas. But please, again, look for those opportunities. I'm a mechanical engineer by nature, and I am a project manager now currently in Boeing Space and Launch in El Segundo, California. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. We are hiring and looking for talented engineers like yourselves.
Leo, good seeing you, man. Thank you for that information. About HRL Laboratories.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. I was been enjoying the panel, and then finally the controls came up. So thanks for that. Thank you to all the panelists for addressing these great topics. My name is Eric Williams. I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager here at HRL. Thanks for the opportunity to speak about the company for a few minutes. I really enjoy giving this pitch throughout the day. I do it a lot, and it's different each time. overall, you know, we're a really special company. We're one of these companies that are really well known in some circles, or you've never heard of us. We're one of the world's premier physical science and engineering research laboratories. We have two very well-known stakeholders being Boeing and GM. Location-wise, we're here in Malibu, California. We're situated on 70 acres overlooking the Pacific. I love the Zoom backgrounds. We're always kind of going through them. I like to share that a lot of people come to HRL and have made lifelong careers here. We celebrate very low turnover, which we attribute to our team, our technology, the working environment. Overall, we're really proud of our diverse culture that we're building, in addition to that work-life balance. As a company, we've got a lot of great programs and benefits that support personal and professional growth. And we've had a lot of success pivoting ourselves in these tough times. Fortunately, we're doing well. And we're hiring robustly. We've had a huge amount of growth for a little company here, and we're very proud of that. So as far as the hiring needs, we have a couple hundred roles, which is a lot for us. And they center around science, engineering, and a real broad range. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Any member of the team can help you, and I hope you'll take the opportunity to learn more about HRL.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And I do love the background. I wish I was there. Representative from Karma.
Hi there. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Hi, my name's Jeff Holland, and thank you again for this insightful webinar that you put on. I work here at Karma Automotive. I'm actually in the public relations side, but I came from kind of an engineering support background, so I'm a little bit familiar with what you're talking about. At Karma, we are an automotive company. We've been around for about 6 years now. We started as the former Fisker Automotive and been through a little bit of a rough time of it with COVID. We've got an assembly plant out in Moreno Valley, California, which is just outside of the Los Angeles area in Southern California. We're in the current position to staff back up, both with industrial engineers, computer engineers, designers, industrial designers. And so that those types of disciplines, we have more than 60 positions open right now at both our headquarters, which is in Irvine, California, as well as our manufacturing facility out in Moreno Valley. There is opportunities to work remotely. I know we've had folks from the Detroit area because of the automotive backgrounds, but more than happy to look at resumes. We're on LinkedIn. Check out our careers page at Karma Automotive, as well as our head recruiter. Her name is Christine Secord, S-E-C-O-R-D. And feel free to send in any questions or information, resumes, and CVs to her. And we've got a great corporate culture. We're just in the middle of staffing up in a major way. Again, because our cars are hand assembled, our electric, extended range electric vehicles are all hand assembled at the plant in Moreno Valley. COVID kind of put a little bit of that on the back burner for a few months. So we're in the process of actively staffing up. We've got a couple new products coming out the pike in the next year, and then some really exciting things in the next couple of years with an all electric variant of our extended range electric vehicle, as well as some other surprises that we'll announce soon. So thanks for the time. I appreciate it. And we'd love you to join Karma.
Jeff, thanks for that information, and best wishes working through all the COVID stuff. I know that's a challenge for a lot of people and companies. Representative from Kia. Chris, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. It's technology, can be tough at times.
I read your lips.
Thanks, everybody. My name is Chris Risden from Kia Motors, America. Thanks to all the presenters and all the participants out there that are listening in. Kia is a great company. I'm here to tell you that. I've worked there for a number of years. It's a company that's growing every month, setting sales records every month, which is especially significant during this time. New and significantly improved vehicles, from sports cars up to SUVs. Always something entertaining to work on. And we're moving towards, of course, ADAS systems and EV, big push towards EV. So anybody out there that electrical engineering fans, big push towards EV. So keep an eye on the car business. We've been #1 in JD Powers for 6 years in a row, which is significant. That adds to our sales. That meant a lot of work from a lot of engineers to keep the products to the high level at which they are. We're based in Southern California, Orange County. It doesn't snow here. We're close to the ocean, and that's good. Currently, we have a technical product service engineer position available. We hire engineers in all of our departments, basically. So whether it's public relations or legal or audio system development or customer affairs, we have engineers for all those departments. If you want to look us up, take a look at careers.kiausa.com. That's careers.kiausa.com. Full listing of available jobs there. And if you have any questions for me, track me down, and I'm more than happy to help.
Chris, appreciate you sharing that information. Lockheed Martin, welcome to the party.
Hi there. Good evening. My name is Margaret Paulin, and I'm a campus relations manager for Lockheed Martin. And I just have a few things to share with you. Lockheed Martin as a corporation, we've hired well over 12,000 employees since the COVID-19 struck. Our hiring remains strong through the end of this year and certainly into 2021, both for college as well as for professionals. We're broken up into 4 business areas: aeronautics and missiles and fire control, rotary mission systems, and space. Those are the 4 big areas, and we have facilities across the United States, and we also have facilities overseas as well. We do have our tech priorities include artificial intelligence and autonomy. I know that was being spoken about a little earlier. Directed energy, hypersonics, as well as multi-domain operation. So if you are interested in joining Lockheed Martin, again, you may visit our website, which is lockheedmartinjobs.com, and you will see a listing of all of the positions that we have available. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that tonight. Will representative from Motivo Engineering.
Yeah, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect. Welcome.
Perfect. Thank you. First of all, thank you to all the panelists. That was great insight, and I think really helpful for anybody who's looking to advance their career or make some changes and look at other opportunities as they grow. So my name is Michael Koenig. I'm a product manager at Motivo Engineering. We're a small-ish engineering firm in Southern California, about 50 people right now, but looking to expand even with the COVID situation happening, still looking for constant growth right now. We specialize in multiple verticals in the prototype and development. So everything from automotive, especially on autonomy and electrification, to aerospace, eVTOL work, plane development, chassis development, and then also in the ag tech sector, doing a lot of robotics integration into the fields and boots on the ground testing. So one of the cool things about Motivo Engineering is all of our engineers work on multiple things. We don't really bring in specialists, and we don't have necessarily sectors within the company. So if you come in Motivo with experience, you're really going to get spread across multiple projects. We have engineers on a daily basis that are working on automotive, autonomy projects, aerospace, electrification, and ag tech all in the same day, let alone in the same week or month. And so you're getting a ton of experience by coming to a place like Motivo that's really dabbling in so many different companies and having a lot of partners in different industries and making those connections. So lots of opportunities we have on the engineering and management side. And we have a lot of growth opportunities to go from engineering to management. So if you're looking at those opportunities, going motivo.com and then looking at our careers page is probably the easiest way to reach out.
Michael, thank you for that. And next we have Northrop Grumman.
Hi, how are you, Manuel? My name is Lexi Huffman, and I'm actually a university recruiter here for Northrop Grumman down in San Diego. And I actually work for our aeronautics systems sector. So Northrop Grumman, in case any of you don't know, we are a global aerospace defense and security company. The majority of our business is with the US government, principally the Department of Defense, as well as the global intelligence community, So we deliver solutions to global and commercial customers, and nationwide, we have over 90,000 employees with over 500 sites throughout the United States, as well as locations in 25 countries other than the United States. So we are gearing up for our fall recruiting season. I'm going to go ahead and drop my information in the chat box. We are recruiting primarily for the West Coast, which would be most pertinent to all of you. So I would recommend you keep an eye out for your local career fairs, as we're attending quite a few of those even in the coming months. I know October is a big month for everyone, so we're super excited to network with you all on campus. And we are hiring for not only internships, but also entry-level opportunities for those T1, T2 positions for a variety types of engineers. So look forward to chatting with you all, and thank you for hosting us tonight. Great event.
Thank you for coming on tonight and sharing that. Hey, you bring up a good point. So all of y'all that are on, right, take a look at the chat. I'm seeing a lot of activity and people sharing links and so on. And so make sure that you look at that because there's a lot of interesting information popping off in the chat. So Raytheon Technologies, you're next.
Hi, my name is Christina, and I am so sorry that I'm having some technical issues and you can't see me. So I represent Raytheon Intelligence and Space, and we are probably the company that you hear about all the time, but you're not exactly sure what we do. So unlike companies you hear about like Lockheed, we don't make a plane. However, what we specialize in Raytheon Intelligence Space is we specialize in developing advanced sensors, training, and cyber and software solutions. So we're all about delivering the best disruptive technology for global and national security. Most of the positions are in Southern California, but we do have 500 locations. So I'm going to drop a little bit of the information into the chat box, and you can click on the link. You can look for me on LinkedIn. However, there are two Christina Lees at Raytheon. So look for the Christina Lee in talent acquisition. And at this time, what we're doing the most happens to be in systems engineering. So hardware, systems, software engineering, dealing mainly with space programs. So at this time, we're seeking ideally, we would like someone who already has clearance or definitely can be clearable. So thanks for hosting, and it's been a great event.
Thank you, Christina, for sharing that. And now Southern California Edison Energy.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can see me on video. My name is Giselle, and I'm a recruiter with the University and Campus team at Southern California Edison, which we are a large electric public utility. We're mainly headquartered in Rosemead, California, but we do have locations in Central, Coastal, and all over SoCal. SCE is a national leader in clean energy, and in 2019, it was estimated that 48% of the power that we delivered to customers came from carbon-free resources, which is really important. Safety is our top priority at SCE, so it helps drive a lot of our initiatives and efforts. And some of the initiatives that we're working towards include grid modernization, wildfire mitigation, and transportation electrification. And because of some of these efforts, we are hiring across different areas within the company in pivotal roles like cybersecurity, data analytics, environmental science, and regulatory affairs. We also hire a lot of engineers across different areas like transmission and distribution and within IT. We also have some skilled craft and field positions like linemen and groundmen. And we also have system communications technicians and recent grad opportunities. We have a ton of other job opportunities on the career site. So I recommend checking that out, and I'll make sure to put that on the chat. And also make sure to connect with me on LinkedIn, and also connect within our network and add the company as well. So I'll make sure to drop that in the chat, and thank you for having me tonight.
Giselle, thank you for coming and sharing that, of course. And last but not least, Stantec.
Hi, can you all hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Hi, I'm Kelly Green. I'm part of the Global Talent Acquisition team. I'm based in Denver. Stantec is a architectural and engineering global firm with about 22,000 employees and over 340 offices. We function in a variety of sectors, anywhere from transportation, water, environment, powers and dams, architectural, among many others. So we are always looking for EIT in a variety of disciplines, a lot of transportation, bus, rail, bridge, highway, electrical, structural, etc., PE level, PMs, construction, architects, scientists, specifically within the California area. We do have several scientists and planner positions, a few project architects. I work to support the Western region for transportation and as well as community development. So I'm happy to connect people with other recruiters in other sectors and regions. You can find our jobs through our StanTech career page, connect with us through any of the social media channels. And we also have a future talent team, and they will be the folks that are focusing on the internship and more of the entry-level roles for the recent graduates.
Perfect. So thank you for sharing that. Again, thank you to all of those supporters and companies for coming on tonight and sharing the opportunities. I want to go back and again, thank the panelists one more time for coming on and making themselves available and having a long, thorough discussion on this topic. I think it's safe to say, certainly for myself, if you want to connect, you can find myself and any of the other panelists on LinkedIn if you have any other kind of follow-up questions. One of the last things that I want to go back to is where I started. If you are here, first of all, thank you again for coming out here and listening and taking in this information, asking the questions and interacting. We got to make sure that we understand that it took 4 powerhouse organizations to put this together and bring this event to you. And I'm sure that you as a participant found value. One thing that unfortunately happens, I'll use myself for an example, right? I was a student. An organization like SHPE got a hold of me. They were a huge part of making me and helping me bridge the gap between what I didn't know and what I needed to do to be able to be college ready, to be in college and then be candidate ready. And unfortunately, a lot of us become professionals and we forget those organizations that we're affiliated. I'm not saying that we're doing it out of bad reasons, but life takes over and you're trying to progress that career. And it does take a conscious choice to continue to stay plugged in. If this is the first time that you're hearing about one of these organizations, look, this is a place that you can call home, that you can find a network, that you can continue to ask these questions, get mentorship, get coaching. So please, if you haven't already, or if you even have an inkling of a question, make sure that you contact the respective contact listed on the screen. And I'm sure we'll follow up with these in an email so that you can get engaged and 1, give back to the organization that gave to you, or 2, plug in with an awesome organization that if you didn't know about, now you know, and it could be one of the best decisions that you make. Again, it's been my pleasure and an honor to moderate this discussion, and I hope that you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed having it. Y'all all have a wonderful night.